Profit is brought to you by StopToShop.com, and they've got a handful of specials for the upcoming season of Pokemon. They've got Pokemon pack codes for the soon-to-be live Pokemon Trading Card Game Online program, and the prices for all Heart Gold, Soul Silver on single cards have been cut. In addition, click on the link in my description and get a 10% discount on your full order at checkout. If you're looking for cards, make the stop. It's Stop to Shop.
Hey everybody, it's JWittz here with your Pokemon Fact of the Day. Now, I do have some bad news, but it's going to be followed with good news, so just hear me out. Now, the bad news is currently, looking at my notebook that I filled out when I was first thinking to do Fact of the Days, I'm all facted out. Now, I know that kind of seems pretty weak, considering I've only done somewhere between 5 and 10 Fact of the Days, but I will do my best to research more stuff about the trading card game, but in the meantime, I decided to just continue doing Fact of the Days, but talk about Pokemon in general. Now, I know most of you guys, as long as you play the Pokemon trading card game, I'm sure you still like Pokemon, and I'm sure you'll still enjoy these facts, so come along with me, we'll still have a fun time, and I'm still hoping that these will be some of my favorite videos to make. Now, for this video, I decided to compile a list of what I consider to be the 10 weirdest or creepiest Pokedex entries that I've come across so far in the Pokemon video games. Now, there are a lot of them to choose from. This is by no means an exclusive list. It's just the ones that I found to be the 10 creepiest over my course of playing. And if you've got more, feel free to add them. Thumb up the comments that you like with some of the weirdest or creepiest ones that I didn't include. And let's all have a fun time. So, starting off at number 10, we've got Drowsy. It remembers every dream it eats. It rarely eats the dreams of adults because children's are much tastier. Yeah, that's number 10. Pokemon's a children's game, but for some reason there are a lot of Pokemon with really creepy Pokedex entries that have to do with harm toward children. Drowsy is just the bottom of the barrel. Number 9 is a tie between both Raichu and Ghastly, because they both have this same strange theme going on with their Pokedex entry in Fire Red. Its electric charges can reach over even 100,000 volts. Careless contact can cause even an Indian elephant to faint. Okay. An Indian elephant. You know, like the ones in our real world. How could they even drop that comparison? But it gets even weirder when you go to Ghastly. A being that exists as a thin gas. It can topple an Indian elephant by enveloping its prey in 2 seconds. So we've got 2 Pokemon whose strength are solely determined by their ability to take out Indian elephants. Was that the only way that they could have possibly compared this? Couldn't they have just used a Pokemon elephant like Donphan? I don't know, but I guess Indian elephants are in for a world of hurt if Pokemon ever become real. Number 8 is Cadabra. Now, Cadabra already has a huge slew of problems with the whole Uri Geller thing, which I talked about in my last Fact of the Day, but he just has one of the weirdest Pokedex entries. It happened one morning. A boy with extrasensory powers awoke in bed, transformed into Cadabra. That's so random. Like, I just want to know the people who got around and wrote up these entries and said, oh, you know what? Let's just say that somebody transformed into Cadabra. Sure, it could happen. Not Abra, the base, or not Alakazam, the final form. No, he just one day woke up, found himself in the middle of an evolutionary line between basic and final evolved stage of a Pokemon. Sure, that makes sense to me. It's absolutely absurd, and this one usually isn't talked about by people, but I just think it's super weird. Number 7 is Duskull. Duskull can pass through any wall, no matter how thick it may be. Once this Pokemon chooses a target, it will doggedly pursue the intended victim until the break of dawn. If it finds bad children who won't listen to their parents, it will spirit them away. Or so it is said. It loves the crying of children. Yup, as I said, Drowsy, bottom of the barrel. Now Drowsy, he just picks children's dreams because they're the tastiest. It's just a logical choice. Duskull, he loves the crying of children specifically. That's terrible. How could they put so much hate on the children in a children's video game? I don't understand it. I think it's hilarious, but it gets worse. Number 6, Driffloon. It tugs on the hands of children to steal them away. It is whispered that any child who mistakes Driffloon for a balloon and holds onto it could wind up missing. Okay, so we've got people eating dreams, we've got people that love making children cry, And we literally have Driffloon, the kidnapper Pokemon. It takes children who just think that it's a balloon, something harmless, and they float it off into God knows where. And they're gone. If that's not creepy, I don't know what is. Number 5 is Banit. Banit generates energy for laying strong curses by sticking pins into its own body. This Pokemon was originally a pitiful plush doll that was thrown away. It seeks the child that disowned it. Once again, someone with some kind of vengeance or vendetta toward children. Banit's already creepy enough in that it's, basically a voodoo doll. It sticks pins into itself to inflict curses. But no, it has a specific child that it wants to seek vengeance for. It's like something out of Child's Play. Now, this is the last of all the creepy children hurting Pokedex entries, but the fact that that theme is so prevalent is just so weird to me. Number 4 is Spoink. Now, here's where most of the Pokedex entries, except for one, stop getting creepy and weird and just start getting unnormally sad. Spoink bounces around on its tail. The shock of its bouncing makes its heart pump. As a result, this Pokemon cannot afford to stop bouncing. If it stops, its heart will stop. How tragic is that? So if you knock out Spoink, does it die? Its heart stops? Who would even think to include that? I could understand them just leaving at the fact that, jumping makes its heart pump, but no, they have to go the extra step and be sure to tell you that it dies when it stops bouncing. Who wrote this stuff? Number 3 is Darumaka. Now this one isn't sad, but Darumaka just really weirds me out. This one I noticed on a trading card, but it's also in the video games, and I just can't stand the thought of it. Darumaka's droppings are hot, so people used to put them in their clothes to keep themselves warm. What? Alright, there's so much wrong with this. First, there should never be poop involved in Pokemon. I don't care what you guys say. I'm sure it happens because Pokemon eat and they're like living animals, but there's no reason to go into detail with the defecation of a Pokemon. However, to even go the step further and include it as a vital part of their Pokedex entry, your way of identifying that Pokemon, that's really weird. And third, what kind of stupid person would put poop in their pockets to keep warm? If they're already wearing clothes and they already have invented clothes with pockets, they're probably close to warm enough they can probably find a home or shelter or something else. But they just thought no. Darumaka poops, his poop is hot, so let's put it in our pockets. There aren't other fire Pokemon that we could stand next to, but there sure is a fire Pokemon that can poop. That makes sense to me. And coming in toward the end is number 2. It's a classic, Cubone. It pines for the mother it will never see again. Seeing a likeliness of its mother in the full moon, it cries. The stains on the skull it wears are from its tears. It wears its mother's skull, never revealing its true face. So we've got a Pokemon who basically only exists through its dead mother. Now don't ask me how that works. I know there's a lot of theories around that Cubone is an abandoned Kangaskhan child, something like that. Personally, I don't buy into it, but just the fact that there's a Pokemon whose absolute personality rides in the fact that it wears the skull of its dead mother and it has stains because it has cried into said skull is just way too weird to me. It's really sad, it's depressing, and it particularly makes that one section in the first games in Lavender Town all the more creepy. Especially because they talk about actual Pokemon being killed by Team Rocket in that same circumstance. It comes from the very beginning, from our first generation, and it's been creepy ever since. And number 1, by far in my opinion, the one thing that can be creepier than a Pokemon loathing over its dead mother is a Pokemon that loathes over its own death, Yoon Mask. These Pokemon arose from the spirits of people interred in the graves in past ages. Each retains memories of its former life. Each of them carries a mask that used to be its face when it was human. Sometimes they look at it and cry. So like Cubone, we've got a Pokemon that's crying and also has memories of the dead something. In this case, it's a mask instead of the, bones that Cubone's wearing. But this time, it's a mask that held the previous human face of that Pokemon. So not only do we have a Pokemon that knows when it last died and is now living a second life, and it's sad at its previous life, but that previous life was that of a human. So we've got reincarnation from humans into Pokemon, and they're miserable. It's absolutely depressing and, in a sense, hilarious, because Pokemon is absolutely a children's game, both the card game, video game, the marketing for the television show. However, just looking into the video game entries and seeing some of this stuff, it really is interesting to see what kind of stuff the people can get away with when they program them. Now, I don't know if some of these are just poor translations, or some of them are just not as offensive in Japan as they are in here, but it's really funny to look back at them, and I hope you guys enjoyed them as much as I did. As I said earlier, comment below with another creepy Pokedex entry if you've got one that I didn't list already. Thanks for watching today's Fact of the Day, and tune in tomorrow for an episode of Profit. Peace!